Welcome to episode 127 of the Fully In It podcast. Today's topic is one that has been very much inspired by what is happening in my personal life, and I have a feeling that if you saw the title and you felt compelled to click on it, it is because you may also be in a season of waiting. And you may also be wondering, will things ever change? Will I ever get to that place that I have on my heart and mind? This is going to be an episode that will transform the way that you think about waiting. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Welcome to Fully In It, a show for moms who are called to grow themselves while growing their families. Join me, Kate Saffel, a life and a business coach for moms, a homeschooling mama of 3, and a woman on a quest to show that our lives become even more meaningful when we remember why we are here and what truly matters most. This show is about going fully in it for you and the people you love by showing up powerfully in motherhood, entrepreneurship, in your home life, and for your family vision. Join me for weekly episodes that will inspire you to live intentionally and by your values, to slow down and truly be present to your family life, to make decisions that grow a profitable business without sacrificing anything in the process, and to become the kind of mom and woman you know you're meant to be in this lifetime. So this is something I haven't talked a whole lot about. I've shared a little bit on my Instagram, Happier in Motherhood, about my husband's job search. But for the most part, it's just a topic that I really haven't been sharing that much. But my husband has been in a prolonged job search since May. So we're going on a little over 6 months as he is trying to transition into a new career field, one that he has not been in before, and also one that is incredibly competitive. And so through this entire process, we have found ourselves in a season of waiting. And even though this is my husband's job search, I'm sure you know how much it impacts the entire home and the family when one person is in a season of waiting. And so through these last 6 months, I have learned so much, honestly, about myself, how I think about waiting. I've witnessed my own impatience and then my ability to come back to our goals, to remember why we're doing this. And above all, I've had to learn how to cultivate steadiness within myself, but also in supporting my husband as he has been going through the emotional ups and downs of his own waiting period. And you may find that you are in a season of waiting. Maybe you have a sick child or a sick husband and you're waiting for answers. Maybe you are dealing with chronic illness and it feels like your life has become one long season of waiting. Maybe you are an entrepreneur and you are just waiting for more clients or sales to come in, and you find yourself questioning, am I even in the right place? Is this even meant for me? Maybe you are in school right now and it's going well, or maybe it's challenging or whatever it is for you, but you know that getting through school is key for the next season of your life, for your career. And so you're in this waiting period for your circumstances to change. I want to remind you that waiting is not a bad thing, especially if you are American. I'm speaking to you Americans, us in the US. We don't like waiting. We are impatient. We see a line at Disney World and we're like, I'm not willing to wait an hour for that ride. Do you know what I mean? We go to the post office, or you are waiting to see the doctor and you're like, oh, I'm busy. I have things to do. I have a plan, and this is interrupting my plan. Well, we don't like it. I think that that is something that we get to cultivate and we get to shift, is learning how to be patient in the waiting, because this is an experience that all humans go through. And if you have not experienced a prolonged season of waiting, at some point you will. Because this is just what marks the human experience, is that sometimes things are flowing and they're clicking and they're working and you're like, yes, it feels so good. And life is just exactly how I want it to be. And then other times you are going to be in a season of, is this working? When is it going to get better? Am I on the right path? Is this where I'm supposed to be? And you have more questions than answers. You have not been singled out. If that is your experience, you have not done anything wrong. And other people's lives are not better than yours. They're just different. The truth is that we rarely see or hear examples of people in the waiting, right? At least we hear less of that than we do of things going well for other people. We see people's new homes, their new careers, their big milestones in their business, the ways that their kids are thriving and growing. And we hear less of the hard stuff, right? So I just want to remind you again that if you are in a season of waiting, that instead of feeling like this is something that is happening to you, what if we view it as something that is happening for you? So I want to give you a few tips, a few things that have supported me and Kirk in the last 6 months. And I hope that they cultivate within you a spirit of steadiness and patience. So the first one is that we get to reframe the waiting. I want you to think about, how could it be possible that this season of waiting is actually growing and transforming you versus a punishment that you have to endure? How often have you thought in the waiting, I did something wrong, I made a mistake, something that points to a flaw in your character? And that's just a human thing to do. We look for the ways that we lack, or we're not enough, we did something wrong. Especially for those of us who are very much like the type A kind of person, where we're used to like controlling things and we're used to seeing the odds in our favor, because we're like, yep, I did everything I was supposed to do. I checked all the boxes. And so if you find you've stumbled into a period of waiting, your brain may tell you it's because you took a wrong step, and that is the farthest thing from the truth. Again, remember, this is part of the human experience, and so the sooner you have acceptance that this is a normal process, I think the easier it's going to be for you. So I would ask you, what if the waiting is actually in your favor? Or it's happening to protect you from another path that would have been worse for you? What I have personally found is that with Kirk pursuing this career, it has actually forced me to take a step back in my business, because he has been, he's working as a first responder. That's his job now. He's working full time, and then he is networking and jumping on calls, and he's doing all these trainings to learn how to break into the industry. And so I have been way more heavily into the home life. And if you remember, if you've listened to my podcast for a long time, there was a season there where I was the one working via my business. I was the provider for the family. And my husband was the one who took care of the kids, who homeschooled them. And that worked for a season. However, he found that he really needed to be in that leadership role in our family, that was important to him and that we needed that balance. And so it's been this really interesting side effect that I didn't anticipate, which is that as he has taken up more space on our family schedule for his career, it's allowed me to step back and be more intentional in our home, in how I homeschool our kids. And if that is the most important thing that comes out of this season of waiting, it has absolutely been worth it because it's reoriented us to the roles that we both do best. So I just want you to look for examples of how this waiting is actually working in your favor. The thing is that you don't know the big picture of what is and isn't meant for you. We don't know. We don't have the entire plan for our lives in front of us right now. And that is because when we don't know what we don't know, we have to lean into faith and trust. We aren't the ones controlling and creating as much as we want to believe that we are. And in a roundabout way, I hope that gives you a sense of peace, that actually you don't have to hustle and push and force things into being because there's already a plan for you. And this waiting period is indeed part of the plan. The second thing I want to just talk to you about is the importance of finding gratitude and celebrating the little things. I know your mind tells you that you have to wait until you hit that big milestone. The job comes, the house, you finally find the house you've been searching for, or you get the answers you've been looking for. But I want to remind you that you're prolonging your joy and your gratitude for something in the future that you just don't know when it's going to come. So why wouldn't you allow yourself to recognize what is going well? Because I know there's things going well in your life. Sometimes we don't have eyes to see it because we're so focused on what is missing. And we're looking at our life through a lens of lack instead of appreciation for what is. And so this has been a practice for me of just grounding again in gratitude and looking around, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we have everything. We are being provided for in the most incredible ways I couldn't have anticipated. And so I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to find joy. I'm going to celebrate the little things. Because here's a thought is like, wouldn't it be shocking for you to actually find joy in the waiting? What might that say about you if you were willing to buck the trend of hating the waiting, like we love to do, like, oh, I'm just like so over waiting. And what if you leaned into it? What if you savored this period and maybe saw it as this little like island or refuge in your life? And yes, you could be experiencing grief, sorrow, disbelief, pain. I understand all of that. And yet, is it possible that there could be some solace in the waiting? I also encourage you to just pray for clarity and lean back. This one has been hard for me, and I have found how much I've grown in it because of this time of waiting. And I've witnessed myself go again, like, a year or two ago. Everything in my life, I believed I was creating it from manifesting it, making it happen, like being the person who gets out there and does it. And as a woman who is a strong leader and I'm good at getting stuff done, that narrative worked for me. Yes, of course, I'm the one who made this happen. Let me just dust my shoulder off, right? And it's wonderful until you realize that actually you're not the one pulling the strings. And so when I gave up all of the manifesting, the law of attraction stuff, all of that, and again, this is something I haven't really talked a whole lot about yet. I'm sure at some point I will record an episode on it. I did post a reel a couple months ago about giving up all of those practices. And honestly, it's been hard. It's been hard because I'm not controlling things, and I'm learning to lean back, and I'm learning to pray, and I'm asking God for whatever doors are meant to be opened on our family's life path to be opened. And whatever ones need to be shut, please, like, resoundingly shut those doors so we know, so we have that clarity. And so I have grown so much in patience in my prayer life and in my ability to wait. And whatever your belief system is, because I know, right, like, it may not be the same as mine. Whatever your belief system is, or whatever your practices are you leaning into them? Or are you in a season of trying to force and push and manipulate to make what you want happen? What I find so fascinating about that whole concept is that we think we know. We think we know what is best, but we don't have the big picture. So it's like, what if you force and manipulate something into being that was never meant for you? Now you're on a totally different path than what may have actually been the easier, more aligned path for you. So let that just be an example of what comes when you allow yourself to lean back and not force. And again, if you're like me, if you're a doer, like a control freak by nature, I know how hard this is. And the only encouragement I can give is to be patient and compassionate with yourself. If this is something you feel called to shift to, it takes time. It just does. The final thing I want to talk to you about is a concept of a waiting room. I want you to imagine that you are in the waiting room for a much anticipated appointment, right? I'm sure this has happened to you in your life. And it's taking so much longer than you expected. Like, you went in, you thought you were going to be sitting there for 15 minutes, and now 2.5 hours have gone by. Right? You're like, you feel all the emotions, like maybe anger, like indignation, frustration, like, why do I have to wait so long? This is ridiculous. I shouldn't have to wait. I made an appointment. Again, there's what we think things should be, and then there's the reality of what they are. So if you're stuck in the waiting room, how are you going to occupy your time? Are you going to sit there the whole time looking at your watch or your phone, counting the minutes, staring at the door, waiting for it to open and for your name to be called, feeling that pit in your stomach, the tightness in your chest, the anger in your mind? Or is it possible that you could find other ways to occupy that time? What if that couple of hours in the waiting room, or the couple of months, or the couple of years in real life was actually for you to grow in who you are meant to be as a person? I've waited in a lot of waiting rooms. I've had so many medical things done, right? Like, I've had tons of surgeries, and I've sat in a lot of waiting rooms. And I always think about the times when I've sat there and I had a good book to read. I brought my journal and I used it to do some journaling. I listened to a podcast. Maybe I brought like a handicraft to like work on. And that made those waiting periods so much more pleasurable than when I was just anxiously waiting to go in. And you get to decide how you are going to use this time. Could you see it as a gift for you to invest in your hobbies, your interests, your health, your home, your children? Could you use this time wisely? Let it be a gift to you. Okay, my love, thank you so much for being here. As always, I want to hear from you. I love just knowing, like, how did this episode speak to you? What are you going through in your life right now that makes this episode so relevant for you? Or maybe you know someone in your life, like maybe you're not in a waiting period, but you know someone who this would benefit would you be willing to send them the episode and share it and just say you were thinking of them? But above all, you can reach out to me anytime. I love hearing from you. You can message me on Instagram at Happier in Motherhood. Just say hi. Or you can email me hello@thestreamlinedlife.com. And my website is happierinmotherhood.com. I know my email address and my domain don't match. It is on my list of things to take care of. The Streamlined Life was my old business name. But again, hello@thestreamlinedlife.com. And my website is happierinmotherhood.com. So come find me, come say hello. I hope that this episode blessed you and supported you, and I will see you next week.